jump up and dance. We're in the middle of the carnival. We are the make you jump up and dance. Working to make this fun and spring. Greatest summer festivity and yet we treated Calypsonians and Batman like dirt. All we weren't.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Listening and viewing audience via radio and Facebook, welcome to We Are the One. As you know, we are the ones, I should say. I have to make sure I make a distinction because I have a very quick story to tell you about this we're the ones story. But before we get to that, you know, everybody knows by now that We're the Ones is that program on Wednesdays where we talk about things that have relevance to our lives. We, of course, begin at home in our community, Point and Villa. We extend to Antigua Barbuda and issues that will affect the nation as a whole. And from time to time, we will journey into regional and international issues. Today's guests. Well, our first guest should have been one Samuel Hill, whom I am still unable to locate. However, I had the distinct pleasure of running into a young colleague of mine, and I just pulled him into the studio because he is good like that. And so he will keep our company for the first half an hour thereabouts of the program until we switch over to our scheduled discussion on the role of the church in the community. So, you know, the last few weeks we've been running a community profile, or a personality profile rather, on people in our community. And good afternoon, Heather. I've had some requests because I've been sticking in the musical genre. And so today we are stepping out of that genre. We have a young youth ambassador. That does not make any sense, Petra. A youth ambassador. I've had the pleasure of working with him over the last year and months. He gave me plenty of trouble, but I'm not going to discuss that part today. Yes, but he actually has some excellent qualities, and those qualities have elevated him to being a youth ambassador for Antigua and Barbuda with responsibility for education, science, and technology. He was also the past president of the Antigua State College Circle K. Yay! That's our introduction. And most recently, for those of you who watched the Youth Parliament, the National Youth Parliament, he sat in the speaker's chair. My mother, you'd believe, is my mother's child, because she was so proud. She called me, Petra, Kamalie on the TV. Okay. So, without further ado, just one thing I wanted to say. I remember I was telling you about this We're the One and We're the Ones story. I have to be very careful when I say we are the. Make sure I say ones, because there's a gentleman who walks around in my neighborhood in Point, and every time he sees me, he calls me, Miss, We're the One. And I'd be like, We're the One. And say, hey, how are you? And then one day he says, you know your name, your show after Watu, right? I'm like, Watu? He said, yeah, we are the one. What to the dance hall? I'm like, what? No, I named it after Short Shirt song. He like, no man, you named it after Watu. We went back and forth. So guess what, ladies? I have found the originator of Watu. And 1 week, very soon, we will be discussing this whole Watu dance hall session, lime. Maybe we get some Watu music, you know. But that's just to warm you up. For now, let me introduce Mr. Kamalie. What do I call you? Ambassador Kamalie Mannix? Yes. You, Mr. Kamalie. Okay, let me introduce my young colleague, ambassador, youth ambassador with responsibilities for education, science, and technology, Mr. Kamalie Mannix. Mr. Kamalie, welcome to Point FM.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hold the mic a little closer.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so he just does that. Kamalie, I know you may not have a long historical body of work, but just introduce yourself to my audience. Tell them who you are, where you went to school. We're very parochial here with who's the best school. So I know you didn't go to my school, so clearly you went to the second best school. But be that as it may, introduce yourself to the audience.
Well, my name is, as stated before, Kamalie Mannix. Presently, I am a National Youth Ambassador, and I have special responsibility for education, science, and technology. I come from a great village. I will say a great village, not the great village, but a great village called All Saints. I was raised by my grandmother and my mother. The epic story of Caribbean fathers not being, the exact best. I had the privilege to go to J.T. Ambrose Primary School in All Saints as well. Then I ventured off to the great, the absolute best, the number one, undisputably, the Antigua Grammar School, where I did debate.
You were brainwashed, I understand.
Debate, which is where most people would have had their first introduction of seeing me debate. You were 2015 champions, along with me and Pell, who I think he's from Villa, so, right?
Yeah, you bring it. All right. I'm warming up.
Bringing it back. And then in Fort Farm, I was youth ambassador to the United States for a year. So I got the opportunity to travel to Barbados, the United States, and a couple of Caribbean islands. Upon returning and going into Fifth Farm, it was a shock to me and the entire Antigua Grammar School. I was given the privilege to serve as the deputy head boy for my Fifth Farm year. Did CXC, passed on, not going to say how much. Ventured off to the Antigua State College.
Why not how much? We will come back to that. Go ahead.
Went off to the Antigua State College, where I spent 2 years. Wouldn't say lovely, wouldn't say bad. I'm gonna keep my opinion to myself. Went off to the Antigua State College for 2 years, and I had the absolute privilege, which I really enjoy, to serve as president of the Circle K Club at the Antigua State College, where I got my first feeling of being
bossing people around.
A very strict administrator, and an administrator left to take tough decisions at times, because there were times where my full executive board didn't cooperate with me, and I had to really pull people together, first years, second years, people from outside of the club, to really pull off certain activities. I think one of the main event for the year was the Mr. and Miss Antigua State College pageant, which up to now people still pass me and they were like, the pageant was great, they enjoyed the pageant, and I think that was my greatest accomplishment for the whole year serving as president. So when I gave up the post, I can say I did something, I contributed something. Finished the Antigua State College, praise the name of the living God.
No, you have me very curious. So that is one of the things we'll touch briefly, but carry on.
I was a member of the Youth Parliament in 2016 nationally. In 2017, I had the privilege to go to St. Kitts to participate in the Regional Youth Parliament, and I came back with an award for Best Speaker on the Opposition Bench.
No surprises
I was
there.
appointed as a National Youth Ambassador, and I have special responsibility for education, science, and technology. So for the next 3 years, all of my advocating will be surrounding young people and their involvement in education. And that's about it, in a nutshell.
Audience, I hope you exhaled like me, because you realize, Kamalie, how old are you?
I am 19.
So, for Kamalie's 19 years on Earth, he has done quite a bit. He's had several mouthfuls there. And I'm going to pick on a few of the things that he mentioned. I think I might have to bring him back for round 2, because we might need more time than what we have allocated now. But I notice you keep being very sensitive to Antigua State College. You did the advanced level department. I'm curious, why? You're done. They can't hold it against you.
To be honest with you, I enjoyed the social aspect of State College. I made friends. I created stronger relationship with friends that I already had. So the social experience was absolutely perfect. I cannot complain. It gave me the opportunity to travel to Anguilla, because I was a part of the debating society, and we did Leeward Islands debating competition and so on and so forth. I got to meet some very awesome people like Loretta Benjamin, who was a lecturer, Miss Denise Gardner, who is by force my adopted mother.
So
I got to meet you.
I'm kidding.
My thing with State College is, I think our policymakers, I'm not going to say government, because oftentimes people attack the government unfairly. Our policy makers need to understand that education is really the building block of a society. If you want a society to move forward and to be progressive and to become a real world power, you must invest in education. One of the first things that I noticed about State College, the facilities itself was not up to standard. A-levels department does not have a classroom. Do not have classrooms allocated.
Yes,
to
we do.
Every other classroom.
A-levels department has the auditorium.
The auditorium is for the general college.
That's where.
And then, if one class is occupying the auditorium, there are about 5 other subjects happening at the same time.
Yeah, under the tree.
We have to be
under the tree
to other people's space,
borrowing other people's space,
using UWE undergrad space, using the tutorial
in
rooms,
other words,
etc., etc. So we don't have actual classroom space. Every other department whether it be business, nursing, teacher training, has classroom spaces and spaces allocated to them. A-levels does not, and A-levels has the largest set of students.
In other words, Kamalie, what you're saying to me is that A-levels still operates the way it did when I was there in 1998?
Practically, underneath the mango tree, down in somebody else's classrooms, teachers being like, you know what, let's just not do this today. Let's just, because there's no space. So that one of my problems was facilities. My second problem was at times the administrative aspect of the school. When you're trying to get information from somebody, but
what type of information?
General stuff, whether it be concerning subjects, concerning events that are happening at the school itself, and I don't know it, my superior doesn't know it, the next person who are all in authority don't know, the other person over there don't know, so then you're running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out, okay, so who do I go to get something so simple? Okay. So the social aspect of it was good, but on the part of the facilities and the administration of the college, not bashing anybody, but those are really
what
my
about,
biggest issues.
okay, so let's see if I can pick a good news. What about your faculty, your teachers?
A-levels, I had some awesome lecturers.
All right, so the lecturers did their so the lecturers played their part.
They played their part. Trust me, majority of the time they went above and beyond what they required to do as lecturers. So I can give them their props for that.
So if you had to, given your current title as Youth Ambassador for Education, Science and Technology, and that we got our education policymakers to listen to you, what would you tell them as it relates to the Antigua State College, in particular A-levels?
My greatest thing with A-levels is that they need, well, I can't say we anymore because I'm now an alumni, but they need classroom space. Okay. I remember it was a situation where when rain come, if you want to see people scatter, as we would say, everybody picking up their bag, running, standing up underneath some kind of shed or underneath the upper walkways for the administrative building, trying to shed from the rain because there's no classroom and you can't impose upon other people's classes. So as soon as the rain started to drizzle, you swear a bullet gone off, everybody running.
I'm laughing because, I don't think we had it as bad as you guys because there were a lot less of us, I think, when we graduated.
Your day, right?
But we also had, we had the those who did the sciences, they had the labs.
Lucky them.
Right. And then for the rest of us, it was the auditorium and the trees, under the trees. So.
And even now, it's become a situation where students are nearly fighting over furniture. When it comes to furniture, the department is lacking. A-levels.
Oh dear.
Where you will find somebody in the morning, they will come and they hold this chair. And just like how they walk with their bag, they walk in with that one chair for the whole day. Because they know if they put it down and they go to the next class, that's it.
Okay, you're very passionate about this. So for sure, based on your experience, and you have an excellent body of work that you bring to the table already at 19. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've just tuned in, I'm speaking with my alternate guest today. I want to thank him very much, Kamalie Mannix, Youth Ambassador. Let me give him his proper handle. Youth Ambassador Kamalie Mannix, who has responsibilities for education, science, and technology. And he was just sharing a bit of his experience while he was at the advanced level department of the Antigua State College, where he recently graduated. So I'm going to shift focus with him now a bit, and I'm going to ask you about your youth ambassadorship. How does one become a youth ambassador?
To become a youth ambassador, every 3 years, well, the 3 years would have ended before I came along, every 3 years, the Department of Youth Affairs puts out an application for young people who are involved in youth activities, youth advocacy, to apply. You get a form and you apply, the general information, name, gender, etc., and then more specific things as in education, the type of youth work you do, the type of youth groups you're part of. After that, then you go before a committee of DYA staff, which in
Department of Youth Affairs.
I'm accustomed to it, I would say DYA.
Right.
And then there's an interview process where what you put on paper, they check to verify with you that this is what it is. So what you put on paper is the gospel truth.
Okay.
And then after that, they select a group of 10 young people. I am one of 10. The other 9 would be Awala Piper, Gishan Powell, Makeda Antonio, V.A. Aaron, Navarra Fitcow.
VA is still a youth ambassador?
Yes, VA is a youth ambassador. Rion King, Sophia Charles from Barbuda, Julian Kentish, and Kizzy Thomas. So in total, it's 10 of us.
All right. And what do you do?
Our role as youth ambassadors, we advocate for young people at the level where policies are made. So each of us are given focus areas or ministries that we would target. So like, for instance, me, I'm given education responsibility, education, science and technology.
Fix A levels.
So on this matter now where you have, because I remember the students' loyalty in the city has become a real problem for the government because they're trying to figure out why y'all not going home. Now, for me, for example, I would then do some sort of investigation and present some sort of statistical data to the Minister of Youth Affairs so that she can present it to Cabinet to say, it's a she.
Minister
Samantha Marshall.
Oh, sorry, he said social transformation.
Yeah, so then she would present it to Cabinet to say, this is how the youth ambassadors stand in this issue.
Oh, yes, because you work through your Department of Youth Affairs.
Why young people are liming in town. These are the possible things that you...
So have you begun to look at it?
Yes, we are actually.
And what have you been...
We're going to go into the schools this week to do some surveys. So we have statistical data. And on Friday, we are planning to have actual face-to-face contact with the students. We're going to literally go into the city and just walk up to some of them. Let's have a conversation. What are some of the reasons why you're loyal
But
to
if you walk up to me, why would I want to respond to you? I'm just curious.
What I find from being a teenager, what I find is very important, which a lot of adults get wrong. I'm going to just put this out there.
One second.
Your
Ladies and
approach.
gentlemen, just so you know, in my interaction with Kamalie, he's very passionate. So if you hear the passion, that's just how he is. Carry on.
Your approach. A lot of adults tend to do this thing. I pick nigga. When you can come down to somebody's level and be like, good afternoon, I am John Doe, I'm a youth ambassador, and we are trying to figure out where exactly you guys, are loitering in town. I'm a teenager, I know, the linemen and so on. Let's just have a conversation. I just want to get some feedback from you. Simple.
Curious. You ever loitered in town?
No.
Never?
No.
Ever?
No. I used to catch school buses. Situation, I leave grammar school, go to bus station, reach All Saints by 2:30.
Okay, you have friends? Have you been friends with people who used to hang out in town? Let me change the word from lighter.
Yes.
And why would they hang out in town?
What you find are common issues because I've done the face-to-face contact conversation already at public library and other places. The first issue is a lot of people have after classes.
Okay.
My after classes start at 3, so and school finishes at 1:30, which means I have an hour and a half
to chill
with nothing to do.
To chill.
So my first thing is to walk around the city and with my friends, everybody go online, if you want to go on the boardwalk, buy some ice cream. The second reason, a lot of people, especially the people that go to schools in the city, their parents work in the city, especially in banking. And it's a situation where some business places have a policy where you can't bring your children
to work.
So mommy finishes at 5, school finishes at 1:30. So I have to go to the office, drop off my bag, and then find something to do for the next 3-4 hours, which would automatically be lime in town. So when mommy is finished, we go home together. The third issue is Antigua has a very large expatriate population, right? Which means it might seem derogatory to some people, but the common word is foreigners, right? But expatriates. And it's a situation where they themselves, again, they work. And then in some cultures, if I'm not home, you can't be in my house. So while I'm at work, I'm not going to allow you to go home.
Okay.
And the fourth and final reason, to keep it very short, is that a lot of teenagers, because they are teenagers, they're now given responsibilities. When school done, go pay my bill. When school done, go buy food and bring home.
Pick up
when
your little
school
sister
done,
and your
go
brother.
pick up your little sister, or wait for your little sister and your little brother to go to school so you can take them to class, and you go to class and you have a billion other things to do.
But hold on. So then, just those few reasons that you gave, I don't see a negative issue.
It's not a negative issue. The problem is perception. Because again, back to the adults, they see many young people in town. I think the issue isn't stemming that they're liming in town. The issue is that they have on their uniform. I think that is where the problem is coming from. They see the young people in the uniform, they're picking their uniform and then nah, go home.
That worries me, And
then it creates an issue because when the adults make a fuss over it, then the policy makers get worried.
So here's what I'm going to do, Kamalie. I'm giving you a challenge now that when you're finished because this is your initial assessment of the situation.
Yes.
Right. But you're now going to do a formal survey and go out
into the
schools and focus groups and so on to get a handle on it and make some recommendations. I would love for you to come back and share with my audience, share with us. some of these findings to see if they actually collaborate. It's like you're doing a hypothesis testing. This is my hypothesis. I'm going out now to do and see right.
If it's disproved.
And because I won't share my thoughts on that, but okay, we have just about 3 minutes left in this segment. And again, let me thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've been speaking to Youth Ambassador Kamalie Mannix, who graciously agreed to fill in my first half hour because my original guest, I'm still looking for him. I'm going to deal with him when we come off the air. But yes, so if he, as Youth Ambassador for Education, Science and Technology, which is a very wide area, just give us an idea of 2 areas within your portfolio that you would like to influence policy.
First is subjects and subject options.
What about them?
Because a lot of schools, sometimes it's due to lack of adequate staffing of the schools.
Mm-hmm.
When you do your subject options, you have to do this, that.
Mm-hmm.
So then the subject that you really want to do, it clashes with something else that you have to do because of your career path, even though you like the subject, so you're not able to do it.
So what do you propose?
So actually allowing the students to, of course, the common English, maths, maybe a science, a social science, whatever has to be done, but allow the students to actually roam.
But you just said you accept that resources could be an issue.
And explore. I granted that resources might be thin, but you make the opportunity for resources to be available. Putting that out to the policymakers.
All right.
Or
That's
if
one.
it is that you can rearrange how the subjects are structured or rearrange the timetable so that if I want to do home ec and integrated science, I have the ability to do.
Okay.
The second part that I would really want to see a change in policy is like introducing more vocational subjects, because granted we live in a society where everybody has a different talent. Everybody might not be blessed in the ability to read and give a rousing speech or write a 500-page essay and to be the Obama of writing and all of that. I might be talented in building a table, building a chair, fixing a car, fixing a boat. So what I would like to see integrated into the school system, yes, the academic is important, but you must give importance to the vocational.
Okay. All right. Well, I think you've given us a lot to think about. And again, I want to thank you very much for agreeing on very short notice to fill in. I know you're going to stick around because you and I have some other business to fix when we're done. Yeah. Don't eat our farmer plums. So, so again, I want to thank you, Youth Ambassador Kamalie Mannix, for joining me on We Are the Ones today. And I wish you all the best, and I look forward to the assessment of that study that you have indicated that you'll be doing about why our young people are loitering in town.
And we will be back.
Yes.
Hopefully with some of the other youth ambassadors.
Thank you very much. I look forward to that. So thank you very much.
No problem.
All right. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You can switch over. We had Mr. Kamalie Mannix with us today, Youth Ambassador Mannix, who graciously... I'm trying to figure out which is which. No, it's okay. It's this one and those two, it looks like. Yes. So, you can have the other one there for me, please. Yes. Who graciously agreed to join us. Now, I have a problem. You know how to add a next screen to this thing? Because I have 2. Oh, never mind. I'm seeing them both, it looks like. I am. Okay, fine. All right. Yes. So, that was our first segment where we had Mr. Kamalie Mannix, Youth Ambassador, with responsibilities for education, science, and technology, who agreed to join us to fill in for my original first guest. And now I switch over to a most interesting topic. And I'm grateful to have in studios. You gentlemen, you can hear me, or do you need your headphones? You can hear me? Okay, perfect. I'm grateful to be joined in studio today by... I should call them old friends by now. I'm grateful to be joined by Reverend Algernon Lewis of the Spring Gardens Moravian Church and Apostle Stephen Andrews of the St. John's Pentecostal Church, who are going to be with me for the remainder of the program, and we will speak about the role of the church in the community. And of course, if you're just tuning in, we're joined. I think that's they're hearing me, so I think that should be fine. we are, you can put it aside. Of course, if you're just joining us, you're tuned in to We're the Ones on Point FM with Petra Williams. Gentlemen, I thank you very, very much for joining me. Just to give you an overview, in case you've never listened to before, We're the Ones is a program that I developed to address issues that are cross-cutting across our community. Our local community, Point, Villa, the broader community of Antigua and Barbuda, regionally and internationally. So the issues that are covered here are cross-cutting. We go all over. The idea being that once we would have finished a conversation, the discussion will continue among the persons who listen with the objective of, one, heightening the awareness of the issue, two, seeking to carve out potential solutions or have persons begin to think to drive solutions to issues that are facing us across the community. And so it's within that context, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you some background to why these two gentlemen in particular are here from the community. It's within that context, my classmate, college mate, Reverend Lewis, one day messaged me. We speak all the while. We speak forever. And he messaged me to advise me that he's inviting me. I don't know if it was an invitation, it was an order to church, because they're launching their month of activities. It was a month?
Just a program, sort of program.
Oh, it's not a whole month. Okay, he's launching
continuous.
All right.
It's a journey rather than a destination.
Okay, so he launched this community intervention program, which I'd invite him to share a little bit on in a few minutes. And then we had Apostle Andrews, who he and I have been at this almost forever. But this summer past, we engaged because I was running a summer camp in the community. And his youth department wanted to come in and do some work with the children, the young people in the summer camp. The camp was for age 5 to 12, and his youth department came in every single day and spent at least half an hour with the children and really made a difference. I don't even think they're aware of the difference they made just in terms of the general discipline of the young people at the camp. They brought a level of calmness, and between those two interventions, and by the way, church was awesome, which we will share on that. I should bring back the clip. I have the clip. I'm kidding. I wasn't thinking of that particular clip. I was thinking of actually the sermonette, because I did a clip of that as well. But between those two interventions, what I recognize, which is not new for me, is that the church has always been and continues to be involved in various ways in the community. But oftentimes when something goes wrong, or there's a national or a social issue, everybody jump up. Where's the church? Where's the church? What does church do? What does church do? Without recognizing that, at least from my position, that the church has always been and remains there. So I wanted to have this engagement where we look at church life, church and community. And I would invite each of you just to give a general intro of yourself, the community you represent, and then just maybe some preliminary thoughts on the topic before I venture in. So I can begin with Apostle.
First of all, let me greet our listening audience, and let me thank you for having me here. It is an honor to be here with you on your radio program.
Oh, thank you.
I am Apostle Stephen Andrews. I am the senior pastor of the House of Restoration Ministries that is situated in Lachlan Benjamin Drive, Woods Estate. I've been the pastor of that church for the last 25 years. And
it's so long I don't come church.
Long time. Imagine that's a long time. I've been the pastor of that church for the last 25 years. A very active ministry, actively involved in the lives of its members and also in the life of people in the community. And one of the mandates that we have is to carry out the gospel mandate that is given to us by Jesus Christ. Our church has a vision, and that vision is includes, of course, building a home for the aged, building primary, secondary schools, and we are even extending it out where we hope to build more or less a place where people can come and learn trade and contribute to society. We presently in the the first phase of our vision, but we have a whole lot of ground to cover. And we feel that the church
Could you pull
has-
the mic forward
Sure.
a little bit, Apostle? My audience is saying they can't hardly hear you. If you don't
They can
mind
hardly hear
pulling,
me?
yeah. So either
Okay.
come closer or pull the mic to you.
All right, I hope they're hearing me now. Let
Yeah,
them tell you if they're hearing me now.
Okay, I'll get it.
Because I know I have a big voice.
Yes,
now.
you're
They
actually
hear me
coming.
now?
You're actually coming to better in my headphones. So
Okay, good.
probably. Mhm.
Yeah. Should I repeat everything I said?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. So we are actively involved in a number of things. We have a broad base vision to reach a number of people in our community, and in doing so, to help strengthen the nation and build the nation on a whole. Thank you so much.
All right, and Reverend.
Yes, Algernon Lewis, the name. I'm the pastor. The pastor at Spring Gardens Moravian Church, one of them at least. And what should I say about Spring Gardens? Well, we've been here forever, 262 years at least, and always had a vision and a mission for people. The Spring Gardens has been involved in education over the years. They teachers training school and all of that over the years. Of recent times, we have not been as active in like just hands-on trench ministries, I would say, in the ways that we were accustomed to. And I think maybe just reevaluating and looking at different things. We have a feeding program that we do once per week. We also have like an after-class program, and we reach out to people who have need around us. The Moravian Church in general also has a senior citizens home, and we are actually in the process of building a purpose-built one. So we are accustomed to being involved in the lives of people. And I think in some ways we have sort of backed away a little bit from that and gotten involved in other things and doing other things. And you mentioned earlier the thing you were invited
Yes.
to, which is called Mission 268.
Right, Mission 268.
Which is our way of saying, hey, we want to focus on doing stuff around us and being present. I think very often we focus on doing things, and I want to shift the focus from just doing to being present. Because I think when you're present, then what you can be there either as guests or as hosts. You can be there, somebody's walking down the road, you give them a ride. Or you can be there's a child who has CXC coming up and they don't know what is going to happen, and you can help to tutor, right? Whatever is required. And that's why we're using the hashtag, reclaiming our streets. We're looking who is on our street, what's going on our street, and we want to be involved. We can just be there watching on. So whenever God says move, we move. God says stop, we stop. Whatever we do, we just want to be available and present for God. Because I think that for a while we've sort of focused on ourselves and lost focus on that fact that there are people who are around us. We believe that God is out there actively moving and doing things, and we just need to figure out where God is moving and get involved with that, and put our hands and our feet and everything else involved. I hope that's enough, though.
Yeah, that's a great
We also
start.
have a preschool
Yes.
and daycare.
I know that preschool.
Right. Which has been there for quite a while.
Ever. All right, but you made a point that I want to jump off on perhaps when you said about the focus on God, because church primarily is about ensuring that the spiritual lives of the church community, notice I said the church, that your particular church community is addressed and met. How does one translate, or is there room to translate from, expand from your specific church community to the broader community which you're a part of? And are there limits? Are there things that the church would say from a spiritual perspective that we will not be a part of?
It's a broad question for me. I don't know what Apostle would say. I think that when I look at John 3:16, for God so loved the world, not just church people, but everybody in this world. And we see our mission. I look at Jesus as an ever-expanding mission. Yes, he came to those who were his own, they received him not, and he went on further. And so we have that same mission to go as far as we can, to be as involved as far as we can, as much as we can. there are certain things because of our spiritual values and because of the core values that we hold that we would not necessarily be involved in. And then I think that we've got to see how we navigate those things. But we may not be involved in a bar, but the people who operate the bar are of interest to us, because those people too need the message that we are sharing. So I'm not going to come and sit down and have a few shots, but I will have a conversation with you in spite of who you are and in spite of what is going on in your life, because I genuinely believe that God has a purpose of bringing you here, and part of that is probably our interaction and how we will share life together and help you to come to know the purposes and plans of God for your own life.
Apostle?
Sure, I must support what our brother just said. The fact of the matter is the mission of the church is about people and towards people. And once we understand that clearly, that this mission that is given towards people, Matthew 28:19, Jesus himself said, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." So the mission is primarily towards people. Of course, there's a spiritual dimension that when we come together as believers, what the church wants to do is to be involved in every facet of the believer's life, so that we ourselves can present to the world a whole man, a holistic man, someone who lives a holistic lifestyle, not just a spiritual lifestyle. Man is primarily body, soul, and spirit. He's tripartite being. So it means that the church must also involve in his emotional, psychological, and physical life. And that's what I want to say. The fact of the matter is, some places, of course, is a no-no for us because of what we hold on to, values and what the Bible teaches us. It's a no-no, but at the same time, we're not in the business of condemning people. I have a clearer understanding, because I can't ask someone who doesn't know how to do good to do good. I have to first bring that people to a place where they could surrender their life to Christ and then follow the teachings of Jesus. So basically, we limit people as to where they should go and what kind of activities they should practice as believers.
Okay. Now I want to take us, maybe turn up a little bit. The whole issue of policy, particularly social policy, that impacts on community. I'll mention two, so that don't think I'm pigeonholing you in anything. The whole issue of mental health of the community in general, and the whole issue of youth and issues that plague youth, like sexual abuse, child abuse. Oftentimes you hear stories in the news, and we know those are hot and button recent issues, and then the question becomes, where's the church in this? Or why is the church silent and not seeking to influence policy on issues like these? Where is the convergence between national issues, specifically I'm looking at the social issues, and church values? Is there any convergence, and is it that there is no room for, I'd say, open involvement of the church in this on a broader scale, and is it limited to just your flock congregation?
Again, another interesting question, Petra. Part of my understanding of church is that church is not just institution. I say from time to time for persons who are members of the church that when you ask where the church is and what the church is doing, don't look out, look in, because you are the body of Christ. The church is the people of God, those who have been called out, right? And if you name the name of Christ, and then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing in this situation? I personally have some resistance to like church being directly involved in politics. But I believe, when I say church as an institution,
right.
But I believe, though, that the people who sit in the congregation, when they sit in the congregation, and we who are leaders and pastors, when we teach and preach, the things that we preach and the things that the policy come from would be the formative factors of their lives, which we're talking about biblical principles. So we're hoping that the biblical principles will still end up in policy, right?
Through the teachings in the
through the
church.
teachings. I am far off, but I am helping people who sit in parliament or who sit in offices who write legislation. Because mind you, just as how there are people who have particular agendas who sit and write legislation, who sit and write educational books, and who do all of these things because they have a particular agenda that they are trying to defend. And so it is with the church. But I also understand, I mean, I can't force my values on people. And I don't think that Jesus wants us to force the values of the kingdom on people. But really, each person must choose whatever your value system is, and I have to give you the right to choose. But I believe that we do have a responsibility to sometimes speak on issues. We do have a responsibility to educate our members and help them to understand what is a balanced gospel response to some of these things. You mentioned mental health. That is something in our small communities that is very taboo. You know, somebody comes to church and they're saying things, and we tend to just ridicule them, or we say them, why they don't just stay home, as opposed to saying we just need to embrace them, even though there's a mental health issue. Embrace them because they're still our brother, still our sister. You know, they are the issues, for example, that is in the news of the teenager who allegedly was, sexually abused and stuff like that. And sometimes you have to be very cautious how you speak about those things because you don't have all the facts.
Yes.
Sometimes I am even just very cautious what I say. I'm not a legal mind. I don't have that legal training. And so in terms of what we say, we have to be measured. We do know that any abuse of any kind, we will not tolerate. An older man doing anything to a younger girl, that sort of thing, we will not have any part of that. That is just not good society. That's not just good value system. And we can speak against stuff like that. But then you just don't have all the facts and you don't know what is happening. And so statements have to be sort of well crafted to make sure that you're not getting yourself in any trouble by saying certain things. And, you start to speak, sometimes you say more than you should say, so be very cautious. Have them written down and read accordingly.
Apostle?
People often ask, what is the church doing? And that's the question you hear almost every day. And even more so if you have a situation that is a little ticklish. You hear people ask the question, what is the church doing? I think to fairly answer that question, people need to understand what is the role of the church. And some people tend to think that the role of the church is to speak out on every situation, to address everything that is present in society. Now, in the medieval days, you had the church being involved and almost to the point.
Church was government.
But that's right, they were government and they were in public office. They ran everything. Jesus came and he made it abundantly clear to us, I'm going to build my church and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Then he gives the church a purpose and a mission. And one of the mission is to evangelize people. The church is doing what Jesus asked the church to do. Unfortunately, some people want the church to be what they want the church to be. So we have issues with that. When I say the church is doing what Jesus wants them to be, we're talking about the role of the church in community. A community is made up of individuals and families. They make up communities. And of course, communities make up a nation. And so we have a great nation. But if we address each individual and change their perspective of how they view things. So the church then is a learning institution. We teach people. We educate people. We educate people how to be responsible citizens in the nation. We educate people how to respect authority. We educate people how to carry about themselves. We educate people as to how to be honest, even though not all may adhere to our teachings. How to work hard. We are doing these things. How to go out there and not steal from your boss. You go out there and work 8 hours and not sleep 4 hours and get paid for 8 hours. So then the church really is actively involved in shaping the lives of men and women who are in society and who are making valuable contributions in society through their lives and through the skill that they possess. as individuals. So then to ask what the church is doing, you have to look at it on a broader perspective. The church is working. The church is not just working with adults, but the church is working with individuals.
I have a question.
Sure.
Because both of you basically are on the same mantra. Church is church.
But I want to say something else,
Yes.
Pedro, before you ask that question, because I think also that there is also a level at which that church probably also needs to do more, right?
Okay. You're preempting my question. Go
I was listening to something just today, actually, and there's a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was a German who was operating in the time of Hitler, when Hitler was coming with all of this stuff, and other church leaders were bowing, and he said something. Being a Christian, and they talk about being church, is less about cautiously avoiding sin than about courageously and actively doing God's will. And talking about courageously and actively doing God's will, and you have to look at that like, okay, there's Martin Luther King, that is,
Yes.
who was in that kind of line of doing God's will, that was not out there in terms of just preaching, get saved and go to heaven, but was talking about justice and righteousness and fair play and stuff like that. So there are times when we have to say, okay, we pray about this, and then we step out, and there's some things that we need to do as well. We educate people, and then we also need to get active. Sometimes we need to speak truth to power, you know. I mean, that is not something that many
But
churches...
we don't see a lot of that.
We
We
don't.
hardly see any of that. In
Yeah.
fact, if you'll allow me, because I'll go back to the question in a way. I get where both of you have said that you influence policies and so on by virtue of the fact that you educate your congregation, and through your teaching of the people you come into contact with, and the expectation and the acknowledgement that once they uphold the beliefs, that they will then translate that into what happens in community.
Yeah.
Then what happens when it is not the people to whom you preach, to whom you interact with, are the ones who are then in the leadership space or in the policy making space? And so over time you realize that over and over again the policies that are being made are in direct conflict or contravention with, I don't say common sense, sorry, or that you see things happening in the community where it's really outside of what you would call good values. You're not able to influence it from within your church family. Then what happens? Is it that you just say, well, hold my flock closer to me? Or is there some point at which you step out?
I think there's a point where you have to step out. But there's also this observation. Not everybody was called to be Martin Luther King.
Clearly, thankfully.
Right?
Clearly and thankfully.
I'm seeing that in the sense that each individual have their calling. And some individual calling and strength may be to help change the whole landscape of a nation. Some individuals may just be praying. The fact of the matter is, and our brother said it, I know there are a whole lot more that we can do and should do, and there are things that we are doing that is not publicized, and so that creates the
illusion of what is the
out
church
there
doing.
that the church is not doing anything. But as it relates to your question, someone up there in office who's not a member of the church, what do we do? I think the best thing to do is to seek an audience with the individual.
Okay.
Sometimes people want us to get in the boxing ring and start boxing, start knocking people down, like John the Baptist start throwing fire on people.
Oh, you're getting my examples, yes.
You understand?
And Jesus and the money changers.
Yeah. Right. So, but the thing is, there's a way that we can do things. We can influence people. We can meet with people on a secret level, in all respect, and speak to them concerning some policies they're about to make and pass. And once the audience is given and the air is given, I think the church can influence people in that way.
Okay.
And to me, that is the safest, most respectful way. And of course, if the person or individuals decide, well, look, I'm not willing to listen to you, then what the church would do is state its position on a matter. But you can't change the minds of people.
But state it where?
Publicly.
Okay.
Publicly.
All right.
You either write it, get it out in the newspaper, make a public statement once there's an issue. This is the church's position on this matter. The church will not change its position.
So then my devil's advocate question,
You want
which
to do
I'm
that.
sure you... No. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just asking, how, for those of us who are not inside your church community, when and how do we get to see? Is it that there are no issues that have reached to that point in recent times? Or is it that your church is still working through the process before they get to that point?
I mean,
or is it that the church, like the rest of the community, has this 9-day thing where within 9 days we just...
goes over.
Okay, new issue, move on.
We have had issues. We have written a letter to the relevant authorities on behalf of the church and have even asked to put it in one of our newspapers to voice our position on a particular matter. We as a church have met with people in authority and hear they ask our opinion as it relates to the certain laws. So we have had issues. We have addressed these issues. We did not come out publicly and say ABC. But if I ask the question like you're asking me on radio, asking us on radio, the fact is that when the time comes, we will have to state where we stand as it relates to a matter. And we will state that with all the respect in the world.
If I may go further, for example, the apostle talks about it's a meeting that he may have had or letters that they would have written. Now, that's likely from probably the Evangelical Association or the Pentecostal Association or something like that. So when you talk about church, also you're talking about different
I know that.
church bodies
Yes,
and all
I know
of those
that.
things.
Which is
And
why I
sometimes-
deliberately went across. We should have had a third guest to take us even further across.
Even further across.
Right.
And that's what sometimes the problem is, because different people have different views
Yes,
and
sir.
different people will go different
Yes, sir.
Routes. Agreed.
So then you have a challenge with that. Now, let's take the marijuana issue when the government went ahead. One of the things I think that the church needs to do, for example, like when there are public consultations, be present. And whether it's being present in terms of pastors being there or members being there, put forward a position. Say something. Don't just grumble in the background somewhere. I remember attending, I was away studying at the time, but I was home for the holiday, and it was coming up. I said, whatever happens, I'm going to go because I want to hear this marijuana story and so on. And we have to sort of weigh in on those issues, recognizing that, hey, people are free to choose, but at least we have to say something about these things. And we want persons to know we take a particular stand in a particular way, right? And I remember saying something at that particular event.
And what was the feedback?
We just move on to the next thing. Sort of thing.
All right.
I think they were hustling to the end,
Okay,
right?
all right.
And they were trying to wrap up and so forth. So it wasn't a point of like,
Let's
so we
stay
can
on
really
this and ventilate.
So let's
Right.
try and ventilate that point, because I think, if I may say this on the marijuana issue, that is it's not as simple as it was made to sound at that point. It is pretty complex, because when you open the gate, it's very difficult in terms of who gets out. And I was very more concerned about children. I'm not so, the Rastafarian community is doing their stuff and they're doing it. It's the other people who are doing it for recreational purpose that I think is an issue. And so there are all of those complex matters that we need to deal with. And I'm not so sure at that particular point, for example, how vociferous the church's response was in that case. And I think that we need to mount issues. One of the things I think that the church needs to do is to sit and really find out, yes, we know what the Bible says, but also develop, if I may use the expression, a philosophical approach to some of these things. Because if I'm talking to somebody over there who couldn't care less whether there's a Bible or not, that whatever Bible argument I bring doesn't rise to the level of notice. It doesn't get onto the Richter scale. So we have to develop our arguments and say, this is why I think this is bad for our community, right? Not just, we know where we stand in terms of our values.
Biblical references, this is where we are.
Right, but let us take a philosophical position on this and say, hey, because of this, these are the repercussions, right? And so it calls now for us to be more deliberate in our reflection on all of these issues. Not just hear and grumble. Not just say they're going to hell.
Correct.
Even though they may be. But come up with, substantive arguments that will stand in any debate.
So in light of what you just said then, I'm going to present a scenario. Point. We have an issue. I'm picking an issue off the hat. Let's stick with the one that you have. We have an issue, a serious issue with youth drug abuse across the board. Marijuana being a primary one, but there's also alcohol abuse. Primary, those are serious issues that are in the community. We know that there is the social policy that speaks to access to drugs, access to alcohol, and so on in the community. So we have the social policy. We know that in the church community, the church will speak to its members internally about its young people having access to those kind of things. So then along comes this issue of now, let's make marijuana, let's decriminalize marijuana. And that's phase one of pushing towards legalization or whatever. The church knows, both churches know that in our church community, we are going to protect our youth. And Reverend Lewis just spoke about the need for a philosophical position. Is there scope on something like that? Because Pentecostal will come in and do its community outreach. Moravian will come in and do its community outreach. And there may be room, you might even overlap or have gaps. Is there room in church, in community, for church to get together and say, look, we're tackling this community, notwithstanding that we may have some philosophical differences in terms of our internal church values.
Yeah.
How can we get together? Maybe have a town hall where it's the church get the community. So it's more than coming and having a revival. You have your service, which is a very good element. But how about, let's say we put on a town hall by the churches in the community where we bring out the church community and the rest of the community and bring them together and begin to tackle those social issues that plague communities. Is there scope for something like that?
I think so. I think you are actually suggesting some things that we can
I'm
do.
asking, sorry.
You are bringing a real life situation. You're bringing a real life situation and saying, hey, how can we tackle this? And putting our heads together. I mean, the two of us are here. Our churches that we pastor are in one way or the other part of this community. Yeah, right.
Used to be neighbors.
We're in this community, right? And so we have to think, now, there is a problem that maybe did not come to our attention before. How can we step in? Not to master the situation and to just say, oh, no, we have come now, so we're going to control it. But how can we get into community here and say, hey, there's a collective disquiet about the situation that's happening with our young people, and hear from people and, together come up with ideas. Do we need to have a town hall? Where do we go from there? Who are the professionals to call? Who are the people that deal with drug addiction issues? What research do we need to do? What kind of resources we need on this situation so that we can attack it, recognizing that it is not an overnight thing. This is a long haul. You're dealing with generational issues.
This is a generational issue where
with
10 generations
issues.
on,
Right.
we have not broken this trend.
I mean, the church has, we pray and break some of those things and so on, some of the spiritual things. But there's just a real issues that people have to live with. And some people drink not because they like rum, but because it
there
just
are other
soothes the
social
problem.
issues that,
Right.
Yep.
So it's, you need resources, and I'm talking about human resources.
but the church is a chock full of human resources. I mean, I'm being devil's advocate. That's not the right word to use now.
Yes.
Devil's advocate. I'm being advocate, yes. For example, and I'm going to throw Apostle. I'm not putting him under the bus, but for example, on the spot, just in our recent interactions, almost every issue I raised, he could find me a resource to say, okay, this is a problem, and okay, we can have a resource here. This is a problem, we can have a resource. And it wasn't about overcrowding or overpowering. It's just that it's there. But let's say, for example, if you don't ask, then you won't know. Or he would do his church, sorry, I say the church, your church would do your community assessment from your perspective, right? So you would both have your particular perspective from which you do community assessments and plan interventions. And sometimes, I guess, sitting from where I sit, watching a lot of it unfold, sometimes you see duplications on some end, and then in the other end, now you see there are gaps that are just not being addressed. That's one thing. Or the other one, this has been a, if I tell y'all why, okay, let me not put that way, but one of my pet peeves with church, and I'm not using this as a personal, but I'm just using an example, is that you come, you have, like, for example, you have your revival services and so on, and we will have young people that would, on the spur of the moment, give their heart to God. Okay. You would take their numbers, their contact information, and I would just make a mental note. This is me making a mental note and say, okay, let's see 6 weeks down, if so long, how this unfolds. And I can almost guarantee oftentimes that 90% of those persons, you don't see the follow-up, you don't see the church coming around until the next season when it's time to have a next set of revival. And the same set of people come up and do it again. So we have this cycle that just, that to me, nothing ever closes the loop. And so to my mind, the church says, okay, we've done our role. We've gone out. Our role is to do a revival. Bring the Spirit of the Lord into the community. So we've done that, and we're done, and we go back to our church community without, and I'm hoping I'm wrong, I'm telling you my observations, without you're getting to see that the closure of the gap. So these young people were clearly reaching out, whether young, old, whatever, they were clearly reaching out for something. Where is that link now that keeps the hand out? The helping hand. I mean, you won't save everybody, but to my mind, the majority always just falls right back to where they were. And I talked too much just now, sorry.
No, you did well. The fact of the matter is, we are, from my perspective, as a church leader, I am viewing a number of things differently. What you just mentioned means that we need to partnership with communities to win and build communities. And we feel very strongly, and we've had that in mind, that whatever relationship we build with a community should be a long-term relationship for the betterment of the community. A number of things will have to be put in place to see that betterment. Take, for instance, some churches would probably like what you would call a regular meeting place where they can meet and impact
inside the community
itself. Like you have done, and I can point you out, how you work with the church to help the church reach the community. We need more partners like that. We're not like superstars that just walk into a community and just say, we bind and loose and leave people there. We want to take people further as a church. It takes resources. It takes finances. It takes planning. Because when you're building, all of these things play an important role. And we're talking about building a community. I think even more so, there must be this selfless approach that we must take. And I think as I listen to my brother, we're taking this selfless approach. This is basically not about our church. This is about people in the community, the lives of people. And we say to people, you don't have to come to our church. Once your life is impacted, once your life is changed. So we are now doing what we should call a feasible study to see how we can evangelize a community, stay in the community, and impact the community. We have tried that. One of the things we've done, and our brother mentioned it, is that for years they've had preschool. They've had a preschool, and you had a daycare also?
Yes.
A daycare.
Oh, I know about that daycare
Right.
and preschool.
So what is happening with that is that they're impacting the young lives. But here is a great opportunity to impact the parents of these children and to interact with them. We have found out, my wife is a principal. We have a primary school now. And sometimes I wish she wasn't a principal because it takes so much from her. Not just as an educator, but a counselor, a friend, children as well as parents, having a mountain of issues to deal with every single day. And the more we get in the community, we realize that we have to work harder with the community to change the lives of people. So take, for instance, if I may say, every year, every school term, we sponsor for at least 5 students. Every school term, we impact the lives of 5 students. Okay, we sponsor you. We pay your school fee for the next 4 or 5 years. Whatever money you have, you can probably put that towards your college and university. But for now, this is taken care of. We feel in that way, we become friends. We take on the role of what we call a parents, parenting the younger people. They don't have to be members of our church. And we have reached out outside of our church bounds, just for people to understand, people who are not members, who are not associated with the church, and have sent them to school, send them to study medicine, and assist them so that they can have a better life. And these are things that we are doing to build a bond and shape the lives of individuals. But I know there's a whole lot more that we need to do as a church, and we need to really and truly assess the life of each individual and look for solutions as to how we can make them whole. I think preaching the gospel is one aspect, but looking after their needs and helping them to walk in the right way and educate them is another aspect. And so the mindset that we have, and I know it's the same mindset of our brother here, is that we want to address the holistic man and not just the spiritual man.
And I fully endorse those comments. I'm thinking, just listening to you in your conversation, the sense is that we have to build those partnerships. Again, same idea of not coming in as, strong men and strong people saying, okay, we know we have all the answers. Really and truly, we don't have the answers in a lot of cases.
That's
but
right.
As we work with people within the context, you're doing something, we can join that. We have some expertise that we can share and all of that. We come with those things. And we get committed for the long haul. And that's why we are using Reclaiming Our Streets. We want to be in those streets because we recognize there's where the needs are. There was a time when people used to come to the church.
To the church, yes, we have a problem.
Yeah, no, they're not coming. They're staying where they are, so we kind of have to go where they are. And we find that with Jesus, he didn't stay in one place. He was all over the place, and people had an opportunity to touch him. So I've been using the term, saying to our leaders that one of the church things we want to be as a church is to be accessible. People need to know that we are accessible. Come to us anytime, or we can come to you anytime.
But how would I know you're accessible?
That is going to be a process of time.
Okay, all right.
That's
all right.
a process.
Okay,
That's by saying, hey, we have an after class program. We announce that in your communities. We announce things and say to people, hey, there is class for persons who are doing common entrance. And somebody may say, okay, really? My child, I can't send them to this
The
other
paid
class,
one, right.
the paying one, and I'm trying to we can provide something like that. So it is building partnerships, and building relationships, which are so very, very important.
All right, we're gonna still on the role of the church in the community, but I'm gonna go to economic empowerment. And we're gonna look at it from 2 angles. I've had colleagues who get annoyed, and these are people who are outside of the church family, who get annoyed at the concept of persons tithing or giving sacrificially. Now, I'm going to give it's not a joke, but it's a very fascinating story for me, because I find if I decide this month that I have a lot of expenses, and so I am going to reduce, because normally when you have a lot of expenses, for a lot of people the first thing they reduce is the money that they give to the church. And I have found, as it happened last month, that when I reduce the money I give the church, that the rest of the money vanish. This is my personal experience. It has happened for years, and I just get vexed. One time I said, I'm not giving the money at all for months, because this is foolishness. How come I don't give, But apart from my personal experience, I know that there are lots of people who are almost angry at this concept of tithing. And part of the reason why they are upset and angry is because they feel that the church gets all of the resources, and it is not used back for either the church or the community. In fact, and I'm going to mention this one specifically because this is a biggie for lots of people. When you go Pentecost, they have the credit card machine, and you can pay your tithes by using a credit card. I can't see the issue, because we're moving in technology. So, but that's just my thoughts. How does the church explain to its internal stakeholders, and as well as its externals, because from time to time you do depend on your external stakeholders when you have fundraisers outside of just your regular church functions. How does one explain to your community that the resources that are invested in the church via tithes and offering and other support is in fact for community? How does one get that message across, especially to those people who are so angry about the fact that people, especially those, they like to say, poor people don't have the money and them still give them they 1/10, or you know what I mean? I some feedback on that.
Let me. The thing is, if when people are angry concerning the whole concept of tithes and offering, then they're angry with a biblical concept. I am a pastor. I've been pastoring for 25 years. I am proud to say I am a tither. I personally tithe to my church. I give thousands of dollars to my church. I give thousands of dollars to other churches. I just came back from St. Lucia, raised $150,000 for them to build a new church. So when people's concept of tithe and offering is that creates an anger, is because people are not as aware as to what God instructed us. Because tithing is not only for the congregant, it is for all, including the pastor. And the pastor stands up and says, like everybody else, I am part of this. Now, the tithe comes into the church to maintain the church. Let's talk about us. House of Restoration. My light bill is sometimes $11,000 and $12,000. How do I pay that monthly without I myself and others who come to the church make contributions? The contribution is designed to maintain the church and to also help the church. We are building a primary school, debt-free. Who gives the money? The gifts of the people. I supervise the work every day. I'm not paid to do it, but I supervise it.
Oh, you know about construction?
I know a whole lot. So I'm just drawing the illustration here. People getting angry. In Philippians, and I'm sure my brother could attest to that, one of the poorest churches in the New Testament time during Paul's time, in Philippians, people want to talk poor. The Bible said out of their extreme, not just poverty, extreme, they were so poor that they missed a vowel to spell poor, spell P-O-R. That's how poor they were. And out of their extreme poverty, their liberality abounds. And Paul turned to this same church and said in Philippians 4:19, my God shall supply all your needs. So the whole concept of giving and tithing was not originated by a man. Tithing is the 10% of your earning. 10 is the number of ordinal perfection. It represents wholeness. When you give 10%, as you did, and when you didn't do it, your money disappeared.
Not too vexed.
You are actually saying, the whole that I have belongs to God. Everything I have belongs to God. God gave me everything that I have, not man. Everything. I grew up in extreme poverty. And I can tell people my story. So everything I have belongs to God, because throughout the years I've learned the principle of giving. Now, the church must be a blessing to people. I had a situation where someone was in need, and they come to me, Pastor, I'm in dire need, this is the case. What do? Do I say, God bless you? I pray for you?
Yes.
I can do that. But you know what James says about me if I do that? James said that doesn't meet the need of the person. Right? Because you told them go around, God bless them. They'll still be in need. What I have to do is assist the individual in meeting the needs of the individual. And I'm sure my brother stands by that. The church has been meeting the needs of countless people who can attest to the fact that the church supports them when they are in trouble, when they are in need. And if you pass some people like I do, whose story is their mother is always sick abroad, or their daddy is dying somewhere, and there's always something that they have need of. The church must be. You cannot empower people if you're not empowered. So if the church is in extreme poverty,
then it can't help.
The church can't help nobody and can't help itself. So the Lord has designed a way for the haters of tithers. I am a tither. I've found it to be beneficial. I enjoy giving. I enjoy sowing. And I enjoy the benefits.
You make me feel bad when you say enjoy.
Okay. So we're saying the church must be empowered. That's how God designed it. He said, if you bring the tithes, there will be meat in my house. A lack of meat in the house is an insult to God. When I cannot be a blessing to somebody, I am not fulfilling the mandate in its totality that God has given to us. So church is not just about spiritual, it's holistic. Money is a medium of exchange. It's a currency that the church use to get, to give, to buy, and do things. You want more?
Use a term earlier, Petra, about invest. Mm-hmm. The monies that people invest.
Yes.
And there's a sense in which that I think that sometimes, maybe that's a language you probably use with people outside the church as well. To understand this is an investment. You're not throwing your money down a hole. Because when you give, God, the word says, Luke 11 says, we'll give back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and so on. For people within the bounds of church, they need to understand that this is in obedience to God. It is not that somebody came up with that idea, and it is not just an Old Testament idea. It actually predates the law of the Old Testament. It's just an idea that works, principle. That's why you have all these international companies who give all this stuff out to different people, because they understand that you can't just have inflows, you also have to have outflows and giving to people.
Excellent.
Because it's really a part of how life is. I like that there's a verse in Proverbs that says, one man hoards and comes to poverty, and another man gives and prospers. I think it's Proverbs 11:23, somewhere around there. And we need to say to people, listen, the money is not coming and just greasing. I certainly know for our context, I don't deal with money in our context.
You have a
the way
system.
our system operates. And it is always to fuel what is going on in church. And the more we have is the more we can do. When same thing Apostle talking about, there are people who you meet. And right now, within the context of our nations, there's so many needs. And there are some people just very, very desperate. You're meeting people on the street who are saying, I don't have a place to live. I probably came from another country. I'm here for a while. The person I was with threw me out because of whatever. I don't have a place to live. You can just say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry for you. And then go
but
ahead.
there's the perception. But there's a perception in community that is what the church does. They say, you say, okay, I have a need. Oh dear, let me pray for you, and then wish you the very best and send you on your way. Is that what church practices, or is it that even though the church does not advertise, you don't go out and say, okay, I gave Petra $1,000, or I paid Petra's rent, or I found an apartment for her.
Right.
But are these things that church is doing in the community on a regular basis to ease the lives and I'm going to make it more complicated, not just of your members or the people that come to you, but can I come off the street, not necessarily a member of your church family, and get assistance?
I'm going to tell you that there are places where you will go and somebody will pray for you and say, I hope that things will work out. And sometimes they will say that even though that they have the resources to do it. And there will be congregations that just don't have the resources, right?
Yep.
And there are times when things come by, you say, I really want to help. I'm not so sure. And now we find ourselves in a situation. I was just talking to somebody. I deliberately walked down from Spring Gardens here because I think I need to walk in this community. I need to really, my face needs to be familiar and I need to know the people who are in this community. And somebody stopped me and was telling me about a situation where there's some people who really need help. And it's going to be, I'm looking at a situation and realize it's a mountain to get them out of what they are. Yeah. But the fact is that the church has to find some way. Now, the church may not have the resources, but I may know somebody. We may be able to link up. When we begin to talk with people in church, we may be able to find those situations. And I think more and more now, I think Apostle, I'm not so sure if that's what he meant earlier when he said we're now looking at some things differently. But the sense is that there was a time when you just didn't think about it. It's like, no, we're not helping. But now you're saying, no, this is where people are. This is where the needs are. And so you try to meet them as much as you can, recognizing that some people don't have a need, but they're coming. You have to have a lot of discernment. They're coming nonetheless because they just want something. And then there are others who genuinely have a need. And you go home and wonder, how am I going to help? And you're praying and praying and praying. You yourself are praying because you're saying, God, I need an intervention because I don't know how we can heed the situation.
Let me answer your question. He answered you. You asked if the church, if someone can come off of the street and be assisted. Yes, it has been done time and time again. But the church is not so much about just assisting you or spoiling you. The church is about empowering you. So I have people who are not...
Listen here, you're not supposed to preempt my question. Okay, go ahead.
We have people, and I'm certain our brother may have also, who are not members of our church, who work for me, who work for us. They're not Pentecostals. They're not Methodists. Some of them are not even saved. But we are empowering them by providing employment for them. And so, as opposed to the man who comes to you and beg you every month, I know you have to be wise, as he said. You have to use wisdom. Don't cast your pearl to swines. Don't just throw it away like that. You have to examine people's situation, weigh their situation. And if people genuinely need help, I remember very well, years ago, a prostitute came to us. A prostitute. And I was building the church, and she stood in the gallery crying and said, I'm kicked out. I need money to still rent a house. I want to change my life. And I looked at her, and I felt the sympathy came out of me. And I contacted our treasurer because, of course, our church has a system. People tend to think pastors just pick up the money and spend. You understand? I don't check church money. I don't do it. I have a financial team that does that. And the team will do that every single day, every single week, right? So the thing is, what happened at that period when she came and she said, I need money? I just felt that she's so real. And we paid her rent for 2 months, got her a job. Today she's still working. She went back to school, got her subjects. She's working. She's coming to church. She's no longer begging the church. That's empowerment. That's taking the burden off of the government. And that's what we do as a church. We take the burden off of the government. And if we have institutions like we have daycares and preschool and primary schools, as we have, we are lifting the workload from the government without they having to look to pay for these people. And so the church is really about empowering people. But again, you cannot empower people if you don't have the means and the resources to empower people. And we just want people to understand that.
Right.
Very true.
You started possibly at my next line, the whole issue of empowering. especially the whole notion of economic empowerment. There are two facets I want to look at. One, the whole issue of wealth, because you know that there are many who think that once you're in church, there should be a big negative to wealth. And then, but that's secondary. But primarily now, how does one deal with the fact that you have church? You are in church. Of course, in church you have people of different means.
Yeah.
Right. Does the church... I'm trying to phrase the question. I have it, but I don't think that's the best way to phrase it. I'm trying to go again. Is there anything that drives a church to look after automatically, even without them asking, the least among the family? So, for example, I am the cleaner. I work 3 days a week. I have 7 children. So just by default, I will always be chasing my tail to look after my children. Is it that the church, and I'm talking about internal now before we go external, is it that you wait for that person to ask? You know, pride sometimes just kills us. Or is it that there is an internal system that allows you to identify those sort of situations and assist? Summarizing my question, long roundabout, is, I guess this is driven by my perspective. I feel that if I am running a church, that almost by default, part of my responsibility is to pull up the least among me, something like that. Is that something that is part of the system, or I don't know?
I would want to say yes without necessarily
being specific. Right.
I know, for example, a larger congregation that is in a city, like say Spring Gardens is, it's a little more difficult to identify some of those situations. If you're in a country area, and for example, it's school season, you know this woman has 7 children going to school. The least we could do is say, hey, I know she won't be able to buy books and bags and shoes and so forth. And we may be able, and I know there are churches that have stepped up.
I'm not talking about where you just go and get books and you give everybody collectively across. I'm saying you look for those situations that need like sustained assistance.
But I'm saying that sustained assistance, I have not known a church that have done continuously, we're going to support you over a long period of time. Maybe because I haven't known those particular situations. But I know even before the book bag thing and so on had become popular, that there were churches that were doing that. I remember one year, there was a parent who lost her job at around the time of Christmas. And the church decided, hey, we are not just going to give you the usual food hamper. We went and shopped, like big shopping that you would do for Christmas.
Right.
And say to this person, hey, nice. This can tie you over until January. And I think in January she got a job. Her circumstances changed. It was looking at it. She did not ask. We just knew, right? And there are times when you can do that, and there are other times when you can't. But I'd also say this, that we for me, I'm going to talk in our context, we need to do more of enlightening the minds of our leaders to understand that, hey, don't give with that expectation that we need to get something back. Don't give that says, how are we going to give this person, how are we going to give this person all of that? No, if the person has need, you can help. Do that. If we can, let's do it. Because sometimes persons say, like we're giving away the church money, right? And why are we giving these people? Because they have need. I have need too, but your need is not like theirs. So,
sustained assistance is challenging. It's challenging in a number of ways.
Permit me. When I say sustained assistance, I don't mean like you give them the same thing every month. So, for example, you identify a family. Maybe I should clarify. You identify a family. They're at the bottom end of their economic scale. So, for a while, you need to support them in terms of their meals and so on. But then you also probably need to sit down with the parents, the adults in the family, and say, hey, You are responsible for these children. We know where you are now. What are your plans to get to the other level so you can look after them better? How can we help? I'm adding that too. Sorry, I should have clarified. So
because I mean, you look at it from a different standpoint. You have maybe 200-300 individuals. You have the resources. You have to also learn to distribute the resources so that people, they're given an opportunity. Sometimes, like, you may spend 50% of your resources on 2 individuals when you have another 2 who is coming up. So what you're seeing is that we have to have a system where we can identify those who are in need. And one of the first things we want to do is to find out from that individual or individuals their skill level. So we have something called skill bank.
Right. Oh, okay.
Where,
Let me tick off as you go along.
So, you're able to find that. Once you discover that skill, you then go out looking for employment for that individual. In the meantime, you help the individual up to a point. And again, it goes back to empowering individuals. Sometimes you are helping a family and they have teenagers who can work and they're not working. And they expect the church
to just help.
help. And from the time the church doesn't do it or cuts it to support another, the church is no longer a good church. It's a bad church. So there's a lot of it's nitty-gritty that we need to look at when dealing with individuals within our church community that you want to give help and assistance to, that at the end of the day, something that you are obligated until death do us part.
No, this is not that. We're not looking for that kind of wedding. I think this question is within the context of the changing role of church.
Yeah.
Also, for example, something like an employment. The one is an employment agency, but where the church is able to keep an eye on opportunities that are available, or educate your congregation on where to look. Educate your congregation. Here's one of my pet peeves. I'll come into this one. We have a situation in Antigua where, even though our education levels have improved over time, the quality of education that we get, we have more people going off to tertiary schools and so on and so forth, yet we still import so many persons to fill top level employment. And I know this is not a church function. This is a societal, transformational, mind-changing function.
Yeah.
But in terms of, say, you do a community assessment and you see this is a challenge, do you think there's room for churches, given how society is evolving today, to begin to perhaps work with your congregations to better tackle those kind of issues?
I think so. Most definitely. People who didn't know, we've had a conversation, I think, along these same lines. And it was something that I never thought about. Because we have students who are finishing school and a lot of them say, I want to be an accountant. I want to do this. I want to do that. And there's nobody who sits down with them and say, okay, I know you like accounting, but the emerging area is in finance.
Yes.
If you do finance, it may be a little harder or what have you. It may stretch you a little bit, but if you do finance, you are assured that when you return, you will have a job. Or there are a number of jobs that are in this particular area. That's the kind of guidance I think that church can also provide. I know a church community that even goes to the extent of looking for scholarships for their students. So that they now go scouting to see where they can find scholarships, where the good schools are, and so on and so on. And they make that initial approach, and they get their students to apply. And so what they're doing is they're helping with the empowerment process. So it's a case where we need to get involved in stuff like that. We need to get into a case of saying to persons, we want to not just be involved in the spiritual things. That's part of empowerment. We want to set you up for down the road, right? One of the things that Moravian Church started doing, we have one of our pastors is a mathematician. He's passionate about math. And part of us being involved in education, they decided they would offer the math enrichment course during the summer period.
Yes.
And so that they've been doing that for a number of years. And they have been doing it.
Oh.
The attendance has not always been great.
I don't think it's been publicized as it used to be. Because I used to send my boys. And I haven't sent anybody in a couple of years.
Okay. So they...
Oh, that sounds bad.
I know they had
I
it this
should have
year,
checked.
but I know definitely they had last year. Right. And I think that it is something that we see a deficiency. We step in and say, there's a deficiency here. Let's try and build this up.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I'm thinking, even for our church, to say, listen, math is a problem. English is a problem. If you have students who are in 3rd, 4th, and 5th form, can we arrange classes so we can give them additional help? Because there are people in the church who probably taught English or know enough of the English syllabus or what have you, who can be
Support.
of use in that area. Just 1 day or 2 days a week for an hour or two and say, this is what we're going to do. Empowering people so that they can be all that they can be. And I think that is a wonderful
So here is a challenge with the empowerment. And this is an experience because it's one thing for us, church, leaders in the community, individuals seeing things, wanting to offer assistance. But the culture of communities have become such that the ones who you often need to reach the most are the hardest to find.
Right. The ones who need the math class the most
are the hardest to find.
Likely and the poor people, unless they're paying for it, they don't want to come. And you don't want to charge them because they can't afford it.
I mean, I have the example
We've had
now.
that a problem.
I can give you 2 examples. One, Apostle Andrew will be familiar with because they just offered to do physics class for us in the community. Physics 3rd, 4th, and 5th form. I have 4 students. We've put it out. I don't want to start the class with 4 students. We've had math. Henderson Simon does math at Villa School. It's now, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. We probably have 10 students. The register from the community assessment will tell you that we have at least 222 students in 3rd to 5th form between Point and Villa. I checked. Right? Okay. And when you have 10, now we have enough resources between Moravian, for example, and Pentecostal and what we provide in the community. We have enough resources that we could manfully put at least 100 students in math classes. And we have more than that. But despite the availability of resources, we can find maybe 20. And then 2 years down the road, you will hear, what the church do, what the community do. When you provide the resources and then the community does not grab hold of it, what is left? This is a hard question.
Well, I think that you're
what
doing...
is left?
I think you're doing something great here because you are saying this is available. So anybody who is listening to this program now and has a 3rd, 4th, or 5th former in their home, or somebody who just graduated last year and failed math.
Yes, who needs to do a research.
Who needs to do it. Hey, there's something available. You can't blame anybody else. It's going to take from you. People need to understand that as well, that even though the church gives you something, there is a commitment on your part. To take it and to run with it. I can't make you run. I can pass the baton to you.
In fact, I'll tell you, when people ask, what is are the classes free? I say no. Because then I get their interest. The classes cost you the parent, making sure your child attend the classes, following up to make sure that they're doing what they need to do. And the child has to understand that he has a commitment not to waste the time of the church or the community who's offering the service. I mean, I don't know if that is a way that we would have to go about things. Well, I don't know how the church feels about that, because that is my view. I stopped telling you things free. My time very precious. So if I come in to give you my time, let's fix it. That's one. That's the thing. The other thing I wanted to ask now, young people, community, again, and my audience will permit me if I use point as my point of reference. I go to Bethel a Sunday morning. I'm on my way to church, and a group of young men are just outside because the point wharf is right there, and they're jumping over and going swimming. Once or twice I'll not reach church because I'll go sit down there and just sit down and chat with them, figure out what's going on, whatever, and so on. How do we, And that's me, not the church. That's just Petra, the individual that says, let's
Who
do
goes to
this.
church?
Right.
So
How do we, how do we,
there somewhere.
is there scope? And I mean, I'm pulling you both, I think, outside of your general nexus of viewing things, because I'm trying to get you to see it through my eyes, which may not be fair. Or like when we're done with this program, we'll go outside and the young man will be on the road just liming, not doing anything. If you stick with them long enough, you could convince them to do things. But we're all busy. So we have so much time to give to this. But if we could find a way to, because what I've found with young people, young men in particular, is if you go after them enough times, they'll come with you. But you have to go after them. How do we find a way? And I suppose I'm asking the church, because the school does their part, they send them home. Our government structures are not yet at the point where policy and resources marry. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, all right, I'll mark that. So I think I'm looking for another point where we can pivot and help. How do you think as church we could, if not every day, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just put bodies on the ground to dialogue with the young people that are just around? And then, because to me, that's the start of then getting them to begin to move to where we want them to go. I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts? I could be chatting total rubbish. Okay, bear that in mind. Bear that in mind, please.
A lot of things get done by relationships, and building relationships take time, lots of effort, and so we have to build relationships. Obviously, that is going to be difficult for those of us like who are exactly pastors,
because you have your people to
we
deal
have
with.
stuff that we're dealing with,
Right.
but we also have members who probably live in these areas who have to see their as part of their mission, has to see this as part of their mission, part of my being me as a member of the church, as a Christ follower, somebody who understands the mandate of Jesus Christ.
But most people, once you're inside the church, you're inside the church. You are busy inside, and I'm not saying it to be negative.
No,
It's just, you need to come out from among them and
Well, that's
maintain.
one of the things that we see in that we have to interact with individuals, and our pastor just said it about building relationships, because you find that if I walk into the Point area, young men don't know who I am because I spend so much time in the church.
But your hands are full in the church.
Right. But like he said, there are members who we assign to do that type of work.
Okay.
We have members assigned to do ministries with young ladies, and maybe we need to get a ministry like that out. Love, valued, valuable. Even though it's done in the church compound, it's really geared for reaching younger ladies outside of the church, between 13 to 25
But they're
years.
not going to come up to the church.
They wouldn't come up to
At
the
least
church.
not
That's it.
initially.
That's right. So that's where we need areas and places in the community. If we can get areas and places in the community, we'll come to them.
I'll find you.
You'll find me one, we'll come to them.
Find you.
And so what they do with that ministry is
They're
teach and train the younger
Permit me
ladies.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
There, Mrs. Felix. Yes, Petra is planning to come back again. And Ministry of Education, don't stress me. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So if we build proper relationship with them, you mentioned about the young men, diving, playing, no sense of purpose. They want to be guided. Some of them have not been fathered. They don't know, they don't have any sense of direction for their lives. And so they need tutors, instructors, who can instruct them in the way that they need to go. And that's what you're seeing happening really and truly. If you have a breakdown, as we do in society, where you have homes without daddies, a collapse you call it, homes without daddies, children are not properly parented because the parents are too busy trying to make some money. The church then has the responsibility to become parents to some of these children. And so we are seeing more and more the enormous task that is given to us to help these individuals so we can have a stronger and better nation. And so if we build proper relationships with them and guide them and give them a sense of direction, father them, and we can lead them to the place that they need to be led to.
I fully agree, and I think that we definitely gonna need a lot of partners
Yep.
in that.
Yes, sir.
Because there's some people who are willing, but they don't have the skills. So somebody will need to
Train.
train, help them to understand how do you reach out, how do you have a conversation with a young man, how do you have a conversation with a young lady, and of course we need to make sure that our young men and our young ladies are safe with these people, so that we don't create another problem,
Another layer of
right?
challenges.
So and we also are part of this microwave generation that like to have things happen as soon as we clip our fingers. I recognize that you may have to build a relationship with somebody over a long period of time. You have to show them that you care about them. You're not interested in them for your sake, but you're interested in them for their sake, right? And I have found that sometimes if you don't have a relationship with them, it doesn't matter what you say. They're not paying attention.
That's right.
They have to give you permission to speak to them. Right. It's a weird thing, but I think we have to care enough for people to be willing to say, I am prepared to go out of my comfort zone to interact with these people. I'm not coming with a judgment. Why are you jumping off the wharf on a Sunday? You should be in church. No, I'm not coming. I'm just coming to have a conversation with you because I just want you to speak to me. I just want to understand, because gradually as I speak, there are things in my spirit that are going to come out, that are going to connect, that are going to deposit in you that I am not even sometimes recognized, because I'm there acting for God, and God's spirit work in ways that I am not able to determine. As that begins to happen, and I think that Apostle said it, they're not fathered. A lot of the young people don't have that fathering experience. Sometimes even in terms of they have mothers who, yes, they know, love them, but the parents themselves not so sure how to parent.
That's right.
Right?
That's
and
right.
so when you love somebody, when they see and feel that genuine love, I mean, you sometimes probably have to beat them off of you because of the fact that they gravitate towards. And I think we need to just be careful to be concerned about people, not because we want them to just come to where we are, but just be concerned.
Yes.
Just be concerned. I think a lot of times church does stuff because we want stuff. So it's a quid pro quo kind of thing. I give you and you come to church. Just give.
Okay.
Yes,
and then leave
sir.
and see what happens after that. Just be God's hands extended.
Well, you wouldn't believe it, I looked at the clock to my mind 10 minutes ago, and it was 5 o'clock, and I was like, boy, a whole hour, how am I going to get through this? It is now 5 to 6. We have 5 minutes. So I'm skipping over a few questions, thoughts, and I have to leave. I have to put a little additional controversy in it. I know the church as a rule stays away from politics. But politics is life, and politics is community. So how does the church feel about the type of politics that is practiced in community? Notice I'm keeping it to community.
If I may jump off here, I would say that I think we practice a kind of divisive politics, right? I am from a community where everybody knows where my family, but their support is, right?
Yes.
And so people look at me through that lens. So if I preach and I say anything, they interpret it through the lens that I'm coming from a political angle, whether I'm political or not. I honestly try not to make political statements because people are not able to judge impartially. They always trying to, what camp are you in? Are you UPP or ALP or DNA or Go Green or whatever it is? And so sometimes the statements you make, even though that they are well-meaning and that they are true and accurate, can be distorted.
Taken out of context.
And I want people to understand, let us as church understand that God is our first priority. Don't care about red and blue and all the other colors and all the other political parties. They will eventually pass away. We are brothers and sisters in the Lord. Let us lift that up. You are completely within your right to vote for whoever you want. Waste your vote as much as you want. But that's your business. I waste my vote as much as I want. That's my business.
But let us focus on
get together. Because we have the same issues. our children had the same issues.
True.
I mean, you may get a job this year. It's going to be my child next year. It's going to be those things. Let us build one another up. And I don't know how we can get that done. We keep praying about it. We keep saying, God, do something, and I hope that God does something. But it's really, in some ways, just kind of, maddening. It's upsetting after a while.
Apostle?
Well, the thing is, we need to say that the church does not get involved in politics. Is not.
No, I didn't say you don't. I'm just asking your views.
Right. Because, of course, Paul asks us to pray for those in authority, our leaders, and those who lead us. There is a measure of involvement that the church gets involved in as it relates to politics. Now, the church is concerned about lives, and second, community and nation building. Throughout the scriptures, you've seen men involved in building nations. And what we are concerned about is that people who are given an opportunity to lead us make valuable contributions, honest contributions, hard-working contribution towards the upliftment of our people in society and the nation as on a whole. I'm born in Trinidad, 1 minute, Trinidad and Tobago. I go beyond and I do something that would leave a mark, because leaders would be remembered for what they do. And so we want to see a politics that is clean, ready and truly, which is hard to get, but clean, honest and pure, and people who who are hardworking and really and truly looks out for the interests of the citizens and residents of a nation to build them.
So I have one question. I'm not gonna ask it because we are out of time. I would like to thank you both and to give you an opportunity, if you have any parting words you'd want to share at this time, in terms of the discussion we've had. You might not, just in case.
Well, very quickly, we love what we are doing. Let me first of all say, we feel that this is a calling, and we are fulfilling the greatest command on the earth given to mankind, and that command is given to us by Jesus Christ. The church continues to play its role in society, in the community, and we will continue to do that because that mandate is a heavenly mandate. Thank you very much.
Yes. We would say for Spring Gardens, we feel called to this place, into this locality, and we are in the business of doing the mission of God wherever that is. We want to be on our streets, being useful to people and helping them to be empowered, but helping them also to understand that God has a plan for each of our lives and to somehow intersect with that, and hopefully do the very best job that we can in this place.
Well, I would like to, first of all, thank my audience for staying with us through this 2-hour program. And I would like to thank you both for accepting my invitation. I hope that our conversation would have resonated not only with the audience, because like I said at the start, my intention with conversations such as these is not for them to be an end in themselves, but for all of us participating in the dialogue, our listeners and those of us who are actually active in the dialogue, to be able to reflect on the discussion and to see if there are any takeaways that we can use to continue to look after us. We are the ones, as the tagline says. It's about continuing to build community, to look out for the citizenry, and to tackle real issues that impact on the community. So on that note, again, let me thank you both I totally enjoyed this. I'm still shocked that the time is gone. And I really, really appreciate both of you taking your time, because I know you're both very busy, taking your time to come and share with my audience. And I look forward to perhaps later down we can probably look at.
Well, because you're so kind and genuine, we cannot disappoint you. I was so violent, came back in, and I as well cancelled. I said, no, I can't disappoint her, not her. So I enjoy being here. Right.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to another invite.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're the ones, over and out. Have a pleasant evening.
Right.
Okay. 1 second. Let me see. Yes, we're off. Whew. Thank you both very much.